Hi, good afternoon. This is Aaron. Hey, I wanted to tell you a little bit about a fun project that myself and some other volunteers are working on. It's called ushpa.org/fly. And it's a volunteer educational project to enlighten people on what hang gliding is all about. And if there are people that have never heard of hang gliding or don't know how to get involved with it, that's exactly what this project is for. So today I'm sporting my Francis Rogallo t-shirt here. If you don't happen to know who Francis Rogallo is, you'll definitely have to check out ushpa.org/fly. You know, I wanted to make a video like this about motorcycling and hang gliding. I've thought about this for quite a while because a lot of my friends that are hang glider pilots also love motorcycles. And I think there's a connection there to, something to do with the outdoors and freedom and the ability to do things that you couldn't otherwise do without a machine that was very capable. And I also wanted to just say that I think there is some sort of a connection there between the people that really like the feel of riding motorcycles and that freedom and adrenaline and the ability to go places that other things will not go. There's just something to that with motorcycles and aviation, specifically hang gliders.
People might say, why isn't he wearing a helmet? Well, my answer to that would be, I've done this many, many times, and this is not really difficult terrain for me. The other thing is, this is a throwback and sort of a tribute to Mick Andrews and Bernie Schreiber. Back in the day, people didn't wear helmets really with trials. So I happen to be riding a motorcycle that was designed by Mick Andrews when he worked for Yamaha, and I just thought, well, I'm just gonna wear my hat because it's a throwback to an earlier time.
Wow, that was a good finish to this whole thing. You'll see me riding around in the film without a helmet on. I'm just wearing like a beanie cap. The reason I did that is because it's kind of a throwback to the early 60s and 70s when in the trials world with motorcycling, a lot of people didn't wear helmets. They wore little beanie caps as if you were like wearing something to go golfing. So with that said, I always wear my brain bucket when I ride on the street, and I always wear my brain bucket when I fly hang gliders. So I'm just giving you that as a, point of reference. Anyway, what I wanted to say and relate this to hang gliding is, you've seen how many attempts that I've made here. If you do watch this whole video, attempt after attempt after attempt. Well, when I was in high school, I guess it was, maybe even, trying to think if I started any of the, nah, I think it was maybe 8th or 9th grade when I bought this bike, my first trials bike, and then I found some people, I found the community, and that's exactly what you want to do with hang gliding too, is find the community. So anyway, what I'm starting to tell you is I would go out and ride over logs every night after school. Like, I don't know, it would be nothing to ride over a log or a couple logs, like, I don't know, 100 times in a night. That might sound like it's exaggerating, but you do it for 2 hours, you get an amazing number of tries in at things. And I would do that all the time. And Well, I think that's what makes hang gliding a bit harder for some people to learn, is because you don't get that repetition. You don't keep getting practice. You know, that's what it comes down to is, you know, with my motorcycling, I've done thousands and thousands of floaters since, you know, beginning to ride this bike. This bike here has probably done several thousand floaters with me riding it. I mean, you just saw how many I've been attempting here. So that's what, when it comes to hang gliding and the launches and the landings, it's the sheer number of them that you get in with working on the technique that's going to make you a consistent and a good pilot as far as launches and landings go. And you know, all of flying is that way, I guess. The more of it you do, the more confident you get, the better you get. It's just it's a harder thing to get lots and lots of launches and landings in, just due to the logistics of it. Now, if you go to a place like Kitty Hawk on the beach, you can get a lot of runs in down those dunes and a lot of practice in like one day's time. So actually, that is one of the ways I got better, was after I had my, well, I guess I had my hang 2 even. I would go down to Kitty Hawk and run down the dunes like, I don't think I'm exaggerating here. I looked at my logbook and I think I had like 25 as like a max number that I could do in a day. Now, maybe if I had help carrying the glider back up, I could do more, but I'm pretty sure that's about what I got in. And after running or going up those hills, you're just like dead tired from carrying that glider and fighting with the wind and stuff. So you're not going to get, unless you live at a place like that, it's pretty darn hard to get that much repetition in, but it's worth doing. And you know, if you can get yourself to the H1, H2 stage and then go to a place like Kitty Hawk, or go to, I don't know, there's beaches in California, there's beaches everywhere, but you know, are you allowed to use them? I don't know. So anyhow, you can go get a lot of practice at a place like that, or go to a flight park that has a training hill and just keep pounding out launches and landings. Well, my arms have revived a little.
If I could draw a comparison to riding Mototrials to hang gliding, what I would say is when you're in the beginning stages of it, you need to do a lot of practicing of launches and landings, and just, you know, it takes repetition to build that muscle memory, to figure out what you're doing, and you know, just takes plain old practice, you know, elbow grease they call it, to get good at something. Takes multiple tries, and when you're hang gliding, you're hoping to be doing that in a non-threatening environment, like someplace on the sand dunes, or you know, a big field. If you're being towed up a little bit, you do many launches and landings. In that way, I would say it's similar to learning to ride trials, because you just need that repetition over and over and over to build the muscle memory so that you can execute those pieces of a flight successfully, your launches and your landings. So, you know, you don't really, you're not going to go jumping off of a mountain your first flight, so don't worry about that. You're going to build on the basic building blocks first before you would ever even, you know, consider going off of a high flight. And also, you know, your instructor's going to be working with you on that stuff, and they're going to critique you and help you to get good at the individual pieces of your flight before you end up putting the whole symphony together and flying off of a mountain or arrow towing solo or whatever. So I just wanted to mention that because it's something a lot of people say to me, oh, I don't think I could ever do that. I don't think I could ever do that. Well, I often explain, you know, you're not going to be doing that your very first time. You're going to be learning the individual pieces of the flight and then being able to put them all together once you gain a lot more experience. Floaters, or floating turns, are a way to lift the front wheel and take it out of harm's way so that the rear wheel can maintain traction and go up over something or take a different line than it would have been possible if the front wheel was still on the ground. So you can tighten a turn significantly by standing the bike on its rear wheel and floating the bike around on that rear wheel, lifting the front end out of harm's way. So that's what I'm doing here on this practice, is just practicing my floaters. I haven't done them for a while, but in the past I've done thousands of them. And these moves were popularized by world champions like Mick Andrews and Bernie Schreiber.
Well, I feel good. I've accomplished a couple goals. I wanted to see if I could still do floaters. Doing floaters is so much fun because you're riding on that back wheel and it gives you this strange feeling, and I compare it to hang gliding in that when you do it right and it's coming around, there's the G-forces when you're coming around, it just feels good. It kind of feels like when you're, I wouldn't say doing a wing over, but like when you do a diving turn and then come back out of that, that's what doing a floater feels like to me. So I would do, like I said, I'd do maybe 100 of these in an evening, working on hopping over logs and doing floaters and parking against trees and riding up hills and letting the thing drift back down. All that stuff is like individual acts, but you combine them all together and it becomes like a symphony. And I think that's the way hang gliding is too. You got your different pieces of it. I remember Dennis Pagen said to me one time on launch up at Heiner, he said you gotta just separate the flight in your mind into the pieces. In other words, you have a game plan, but when you do your launch is a separate piece. You're just totally focused on your launch. After you're in the air flying, you're looking for lift, you're ridge soaring, looking for thermals, and then at some point when you go to land, you got to switch over to landing approach mode. And then as you're in landing approach mode, get your approach set up, and now you start thinking about feeling the glider and getting the the final down, nailed down right where you want it, and then also, you know, timing of your flare. So that's what Dennis told me, is to just break it down in your mind and just focus on the pieces. You know how to do the pieces. So you do this piece, then you do that piece, then you do that piece, and the final piece. So I think that's a helpful point to keep in mind, because sometimes just going and trying to launch and go off of a mountain, especially when you're new at it or maybe rusty, haven't done it for a while, it's helpful to think of those pieces and just break it down, focus on what you know, and don't get overwhelmed with the whole thing. Just be focusing on what you are working on at the minute. Focus on what you're working on at the minute. Straight in?
Yep.
Ready? Clear. Wall set. you got the slow game, and then you got the all-out ripping game. Trials has both. I don't know if you saw what I did there, but I made that turn. I swept back a little bit so that I could straighten my approach for the hill. And then I was slipping my clutch, giving it full bore throttle, and then dumping the clutch and using all that pent up energy to fly up that hill.
I thought I would show you something. I grew up on this book by Bernie Schreiber. He was a world champion trials rider, and as a youngster, teenager, this is the sport that I was into. Observed trials and competing in that. I didn't really know anything about hang gliding, but what I wanted to show you is this book was very influential in my ability to ride trials. And also, I just wanted to say that I grew up near some people, the Young family, and they're all champion trials riders in the USA. So that's pretty amazing. And the person that gave me this book was Jerry Young. Now, sadly, I loaned my book out and I haven't got it back, but there's one on eBay. I'm thinking about buying it, but it's pretty expensive, so I think I'll hold off and maybe I'll get mine back someday. Anyway, what I wanted to say is the Hang Gliding Training Manual by Dennis Pagen has helped me to get where I'm at with my hang gliding. So, you know, having a good publication to look at and refer to and study your flights against what you're reading in the book is invaluable. The same way that you know, it is for somebody that's learning to ride trials to have advice of experts. So that's what I'm showing you this for.
Here comes Joe.
Yeah.
It does look like a quick little wing. See that drop?
Yeah.
Like there's some serious
Yeah, he's got some things.
gradient or something there. Oh no. Well, at least there's headwind to land into.
He's gonna make it so close. Yep, there it is. Woo!
Nice!
Yeah.
Woo! Well, that was beautiful.
Oh.
Well, I'm back. Well, I hope you enjoyed the little film. I hope you enjoyed to see some of the crazy motorcycling stuff that I used to be pretty good at, but I'm not quite as good at anymore. And I really hope you enjoyed the presentation too on the hang gliding stuff, because honestly I do believe that people that ride motorcycles would probably be a pretty good fit for hang gliding. So the other thing I just wanted to say is, you know, if you haven't had a chance to do it yet, check out ushpa.org/fly, and there will be a description of that in the YouTube video where you can see how it's spelled and look it up. And I don't know if I can put a QR code or not, but if I can, I'll put one in there for you. Okay, well, have a good day and happy riding, happy flying if you choose to do it.